Hello friends, Adam here with FED. Today we're going to talk about skills throughout the entire series and how Three Houses really does them the best. So, let's get started. Skills in their very most basic form were first introduced in Fire Emblem Gaiden, the second game in the series. Now, it was really only one skill that was added to my knowledge, and that's Banish. At least that's what it's called in Echoes. And essentially it just made it so Falcon Knights did effective damage to all monsters, which is fine and dandy. Our real first implementation of a real robust skill system comes in Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, which is the fourth game in the series. Now, skills were such a big part of the game because of what's called inheritance, which I'm not going to spoil it. It's just essentially you can pass skills from one character to a couple other characters if you do some things. I don't know. Again, I won't spoil it. Go play the game yourself. But it's a really important part of the game. There were some skills that were tied to classes and some skills that were tied to just the individual character. And you could pass on skills that were tied to the character, but not ones that were tied to classes. So, for example, every single sword fighter in the game had the skill Pursuit, which allowed them to double attack. But other characters, like the main character Sigurd, also has Pursuit as a personal skill. But not all characters in that. I guess a better example would be Midir, who is a bow knight who has the skill Pursuit, but not every bow knight in the game has Pursuit. So there's personal skills and also class skills. And that's a pretty important distinction in Genealogy of the Holy War to understand when you're making pairings and whatnot. Then we move on to Thracia 776, or the fifth game in the series, which removed Pursuit, which was essentially just made it so you could double FE4, double attack, they made it a skill for some reason. In FE5, that's not a thing. They got rid of that, but they kept pretty much everything else to my knowledge. But they changed how some skills work. Like Miracle is a little different, it's a little less overpowered. They changed Steal, just so you don't steal money from enemies when you attack them. You can actually like steal items from them, which I think is a bit better, especially in FE5 where money isn't super important. And it's basically the same. But the big thing from FE5 and FE4 that I want to talk about are that skills, a lot of the combat skills were focused on random chance. Skills like Adept, which allows you to attack twice consecutively. It was like in FE4, it was like an attack speed plus 20 as a percent. And that was your chance of using Adept or Continue. It was called in the old translation. Or you had Astra, which was I can't remember if it was a speed or a skill percentage chance of activating. Luna, same thing. Soul, same thing. They're all activated based on random chance. And then from FE5, we don't see skills again in FE6, but we do see kind of a limited version of it in FE7. FE7, we have Lethality or Silencer, which is tied to one class, which is Assassin, and they can essentially one-shot enemies, regardless of how much damage they would do. And it's their crit rate divided by 4 was the chance for that. So again, random chance and not super prevalent in the game. Again, that's a very small group of characters that can use that skill at all. So there's that. And then moving to FE8, Sacred Stones, we have a few more, but again, very limited and very class focused. Things like Summon, which only summoners could use. They could summon these phantoms that have like 1 HP, but they have like some stats. You can like have them go attack people for you. Assassin still had Silencer. Wyvern, what do they call Wyvern Knights, right? It wasn't Wyvern Lord or Rider, it was like Wyvern Knight. They had Pierce, which is like Luna, or just attacking through defense. Bishops had Slayer. They always did effective damage against monsters. And Generals had Great Shield or Previous. I can't remember what it was called in FE8. It was one of those. But it just negates damage. And those, again, all of those except for Slayer and Summon. So Slayer and Summon, I shouldn't say all of them except Slayer and Summon are always active, whereas the Silencer, Pierce, and Great Shield are, again, luck-based. They're random chance. Moving on, we get to FE9, Path of Radiance, and FE10, Radiant Dawn, whose skill systems are basically the same. and it's very much like FE5. A lot of the same skills make a return. There are some added ones as well, like one that comes to mind right away is Fortune, which negates all critical hits against that unit, which is honestly kind of cool, but pretty niche. And rather than only being able to equip so many skills or learn so many skills, like being limited to, I think it's 6 or 7, I think it's 6 in FE5, you could learn as many skills as the point system would allow. In FE9, the point system was always 20, and skills had took anywhere from 5 to 15 or even 20 of your skill capacity. And Radiant Dawn did it a little differently, where different classes had different amounts of skill capacity, and you could actually trade skills between units in between battles somehow. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense how that works, but it was a thing. But again, a lot of stuff was based on random chance, especially if the Japanese version of Radiant Dawn is awful. Like things like Wrath and Vantage are random chance, like completely, which is just ridiculous. Like Wrath just might not activate because the game decided it didn't want to, which is dumb when it's something in the international release is a very sure thing. When you're under 30% HP, you just get 58% extra critical rather than being a random chance. So it's something you can rely on and do something with, which I think is interesting. But you still have, your Astras, your Lunas, your Aethers, your Souls, things that are random chance, whether they happen or not. Then we don't see skills. Moving on, we don't see skills in the DS Fire Emblem games, FE11, FE12, Shadow Dragon, and New Mystery. But Awakening is where Fire Emblem really goes off the rails with skills. You can equip like all sorts of just crazy skill combinations. You learn them by leveling up in particular classes. So particular classes learn particular skills, but you can take them between classes when you reclass. And this is particularly broken for the Avatar character or the children of the Avatar character, because they have access to every class in the game as long as their gender is aligned with it. For instance, males can't go into like Pegasus Knight, but females can't go into like Berserker kind of thing. And this is allowed for just all sorts of broken combos. You're limited to 5 equipped skills at a time, but that's barely a limit. You can just do all sorts of crazy combos that just win the game for you. There's some really, really good ones. But we still see a ton of skills that rely on random chance, a lot of proc rate type things that I wish weren't included. But this is where we start to see a shift. We start to see a shift into skills being less random chance and more activate, like you choose to activate them or they're always active. Things like, the stat +2 skills or rallies. Those are things that you choose to use or are always active. Things you can count on. Fire Emblem Fates, basically the same, except they added personal skills, which is pretty important to add. Personal skills, every unit has just an ability, a skill that is unique totally to them, which is honestly pretty cool. But that's really all that changes there. Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia gave us combat arts in place of skills, aside from a few like Banish that I talked about, and also there's another one. I looked it up really quick, couldn't find it very quickly. But anyways, there's some classes that can walk on terrain without getting hurt by it, like the swamps and stuff like that other units would be. And so again, limited skill system, but combat arts kind of replace it, and they're pretty cool too. And I like that combat arts are things you can choose to activate rather than hoping Astra or Luna or something procs and happens. And finally, we get to 3 houses. 3 houses changed everything. And even the name, they're not skills anymore. Now they're abilities. Those abilities have moved away from percentage-based proc rates and moved more towards flat buffs to stats, hit rates, attack, pretty much everything. You can buff just about anything that has a number in 3 houses with a skill. And I personally really like that. Really, there are only a few abilities that activate by random chance, like Miracle, Lethality, Pavice, Aegis, and Goodie Basket, my favorite skill, are just a few that I can think of off the top of my head that are activation based, like random chance based. Whereas literally all the other ones, those are like the only ones I can think of. Like everything else, it just gives you buffs or debuffs the enemy in the case of like breaker skills, or you have to activate it with rally by using like the rally command or something like that, or by using a combat art to do a skill or something. I think that is when Fire Emblem is at its best, when you can predict what's going to happen to some extent and really plan it out. I mean, I like hit rates and stuff like that. I like random crits. Crits are cool. But any more randomness beyond those basic things can be really frustrating to me, especially when the enemy has access to things like Miracle or Lethality or Astra or something that can really just take your plan and just ruin it entirely. That's really frustrating. But I think Three Houses is the first game in the series to really make skills, or I guess abilities, a very reliable tool rather than a fun or sometimes frustrating happenstance that you couldn't really count on. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like the video before you leave and subscribe to the channel if you aren't. And share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about skills and abilities throughout the series? Which games did it best? Which games did it worst? And do you think Three Houses really did, like, almost, I don't want to say perfect, but really is our best skill system to date? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.